Episode 3, Rugged Hardware Solutions. And we're talking to our guest today, Product Director Francois du Toit, flown in from Langebaan to come talk to us. And our topic today, we're going to talk about specialized, durable and reliable hardware for any work environment. And obviously in security, logistics and other tough industries, your equipment must be as tough as your team. Whether it's extreme weather, heavy duty use or remote locations, reliable communication and monitoring tools aren't a luxury. They're essential. And today we sit down, as mentioned, with Instacom's product director to unpack Instacom's rugged hardware solutions. And we'll explore how our ICASA and IP-rated devices are designed to thrive in the South African, probably most demanding environment in Africa, I suppose. Francois, welcome. And we've been looking forward to getting you down here in Gauteng, talking to you with a area of speciality in what you do.
Perfect. Thank you, Roland. It's good to be here. It's a privilege to be here as well. And I'm looking forward to today.
Yeah, so I think kicking off and getting right into it, the first question is, let's start with the basics. Why is durable and reliable hardware so essential and crucial in today's environments?
Now, as you mentioned, if you take a look at the South African environment and Africa in general, it's quite a demanding environment, and especially if you start looking at the different verticals like your security, mining, agriculture, logistics. A lot of that portion of work happens outdoors. And it happens in the harsh African sun, a lot of dust, rain, you name it, and that's where rugged, durable devices is essential. It helps you with ensuring you have a lot more uptime in your business. It brings down the cost of repairs, as you don't need to replace screens as much or have water damaged devices. As well as rugged hardware is specifically designed to incorporate loudspeakers. So when you are outside in noisy environments, you can still hear what is happening. You can still communicate as is required. Our specifically designed hardware also incorporates larger batteries with a swappable battery as well, which ensures a 24-hour work day.
So if you mention battery swappable, right? So there's a new thing that came into play the last couple of years where they talk about hot swaps. Is it hot swaps? Is when you change the battery and then it still runs because it's got a little bit of a backup inside of it to give you time to swap it. What do you call it?
Hot swappable batteries. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you take a look at our body camera solution, that does incorporate a hot swappable battery, which basically means it has a small built-in battery to give you about 10 or 15 minutes of uptime during that process of where you swap your flat battery for a new charged battery to ensure you always have uptime. Your video recording stays active, and you never miss any crucial evidence.
But it's not with all our devices.
No. So that's only on the body cams. With the rest of our rugged hardware, we do have a specialized desktop charger where you can charge additional batteries in, which means you can always have a fully charged backup battery. And as you work your day and you get to a point where you can see, okay, my battery is flat, you can then just basically swap it, and then you're down for about a minute or so just during that swappable process.
And so within that, obviously, it's important to have a device that can last not just a 8-hour shift, maybe a 12-hour shift, and maybe 24/7 type hardware, depending on what the shifts look like. And then the cradle obviously offers the additional battery, and then the hot swaps is obviously a new thing, but it makes the device a little bit more expensive. I think one of the things we see a lot is devices that's cheap and nasty, which sounds and sometimes looks great, but it doesn't necessarily obviously give you what you need when you're working in harsh environments or outside. Maybe it's not that harsh, it's just outside where dust and water obviously is real. So obviously Instacom's devices are known for being rugged and reliable, and within that range, can you give us a little bit of an overview of those type of solutions?
Yeah, no, definitely. If you can take a look at our main product line, our Rugia range, with whom we've been partnered now for almost 12 years. All of those devices is specifically designed and developed in-house by Rugia themselves, with a lot of input from Instacom, especially in regards to certain functionalities and ruggedness and durability we require in the African market. So every component is specifically chosen and designed. If you take a look from your molding process, the type of plastic being used in the case, the type of PC boards, your CPUs, your memory RAM, everything is specifically designed and chosen to ensure as rugged as possible, but also ensure longevity when it comes to supporting those devices.
So maybe the devices actually has a lot of quality control in the different parts. For instance, the quality of the plastic, could be a better quality. The quality of a chipset or a type of chipset for location purposes, for instance. So if it's not the quality it should be, it's not going to be as accurate and reliable as you need it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's also why we always ensure that if we take the GPS chips, for argument's sake, that whatever hardware we choose to incorporate, that there is GPS chipsets that can connect to the different satellite systems out there. If you take a look at your normal GPS system, you look at Baodu, which is the Chinese one, and you look at Galileo and so forth. So we always ensure that the devices we bring in can connect to multiple satellite systems to ensure as accurate as possible. But I mean,
so not all devices connects with all satellites available out there.
Not the cheap and nasty ones, as it does add as an additional cost to it. But if you take a look at most of your modern high to medium level devices, most of them does incorporate chipsets that can
connects to all of them. And in the Instacom range, is that a 95%?
Yes,
box?
Yeah. No, it's basically all new devices we bring in must be able to connect to at least two, but we try to do 3 to ensure as accuracy. Yes.
Yeah, accuracy. Interesting. What makes Instacom hardware stand out from other devices in the market? I mean, there's so many, and we've seen some come and go. I think one of the most important brands that I think when you talk about rugged devices is a brand called CAT. I think the CAT devices has been there for so many years, and unfortunately, if I'm not mistaken, they've closed down the mobile range last year. And CAT as a brand, I think, has got more important things to focus on, bigger type of products that we all know what they do. But the CAT range has been there for so long. And if you look at the spec of what the CAT devices were made of versus the price you pay for it, nowadays there's quite a bit of competition. Do you think the quality is competitive? With the ones that we have now, like the Ulefone argument's sake, do you think that competes well, spec and quality-wise, with the CAT?
Yeah, I would say so. Look, if you take a look at your Ulefone's Blackview, that type of environment, they've really disrupted the rugged consumer market, and there's a big difference that we need to. A difference we need to take into account is that if you go and take a look at your Ulefone's Blackviews, they are a lot more positioned for the consumer market and not for your enterprise and B2B market.
Not a work tool.
Yes, it's not a work tool, where we ensure that the products that we bring in, because we are supplying to businesses, is a working tool. It's not just a smartphone or a rugged device. It's something that is specifically built to incorporate specific functionalities to be able to, especially in the security industry, mining, where critical communications is is a requirement.
It's essential.
Yes, it's essential. It's not a nice to have. So that's why we partnered with Rugged in the first place. Is that they don't necessarily cater for the consumer market, but they cater for the business enterprise environment, and they
So it's
build work
purely
tools.
or primarily B2B, business to business.
Yes.
And that means that there's a lot of accessories. These type of cradle chargers that accommodates additional batteries, and to be able to provide you with the necessary to be able to run a proper maybe fleet or a lot of staff out in the field on a mine, construction, maybe cleaning facility, management, security companies. So it is important, and how important is the hardware? If you look at the Instacom solution, if that doesn't work, is Instacom still up and running?
Yeah, so the hardware component is very, very important in that ecosystem that we call the Instacom solution. Because at Instacom we don't just do hardware, we do the software, we do the networks connectivity, and then we have the whole support and then repair environment behind that. And if you take a look at the 4 pillars, hardware is one of the essential pillars inside of the Instacom solution. So no, it is very important that whatever tool you use out in the field is one that is rugged. Ensure you don't have a lot of downtime. It doesn't break easily. So to provide our customers with the peace of mind that their essential personnel or security personnel or whoever is using this system does have a working tool out in the field. And our hardware incorporates specific built loudspeakers to ensure proper communication. It's got dedicated PTT buttons to ensure ease of use for the communication. It's got built-in panic buttons, and another essential part of the ecosystem is the Android solution on these devices, where it's a clean Android solution. So there's no OEM specific software and applications on there. It's a clean Android. It makes it a lot easier to support from a software development side of things, but also from a user point of view. There's nothing cumbersome on the devices. There's no third-party apps consuming resources on these devices. So you purely have a working tool that does what it's supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. And that's important, because if you have a device that doesn't necessarily run only what's needed, there's 2 things that's going to be a challenge. And the one is obviously battery life. And we've seen if the battery doesn't last, the solution doesn't work, regardless of who your supplier is and what type of software you're using. The other portion is it will definitely consume a lot of data. And unfortunately, South Africa is one of the most expensive countries when it comes to data. Obviously, we're doing a lot of business in Africa. And if you go to Tanzania and Kenya and the likes, they give you 6 to 10 gigs for something silly like 200 Rand, versus obviously South Africa, which is a lot more expensive. So it's important to keep in mind it is solution driven. Outside of understanding the connectivity, the data usage or consumption, optimization of the applications to be able to mitigate that, there's so much that sits inside of the hardware that is either going to make or break, whatever you put on. And in some of the instances, like your first responders, it's people's lives at risk. In other environments like logistics, argument's sake, construction, it is definitely affecting efficiency, right? So I think, there's so much in it which normally people don't understand, just purely because you don't know. You should ask the question. When someone walks in, it's 99% of the time it's price. But the reality, and I think, from an Instacom perspective, we always focus on quality, redundancy, backup, who manufactures these things. You were in China just a month or so ago.
Yes, that's correct.
Visited some of the manufacturers. And what would you say, if you look at some of the factories that you've seen versus Rugged specifically, how well are they positioned in the world as a hardware manufacturer?
Now, if you take a look at a rugged perspective, Rugged is the leading brand when it comes to enterprise and working tools. And it was quite interesting visiting some different other suppliers and just hearing the way that they speak about Rugged in a very they have so much respect for what they're doing, and they're all chasing the quality and the type of devices that Rugged is putting out there. During my visit, had the opportunity to visit some of the different suppliers or hardware manufacturers' labs and the factories, and all I can say is that the Rugged environment is just next level. If you take a look at their research and development side of things, even before they get to a point where they start releasing new devices, in certain cases it takes months, even years, for them to get to that perfect point of releasing a device, and the tests and quality control that goes into that. I mean, you walk into their lab and there's 30, 40 different machines testing, each one testing a different functionality on the device. To take as an example, and it's something that not everybody thinks about, but the material you use on the device, it needs to accommodate the amount of times you put the device into your pocket. You don't think about it because as soon as you put it in your pocket, it slides against the material. If it's a jean, it's a rough material. So they've got machines there that runs constantly. The device is basically linked to it, and that machine just basically mirrors putting a device inside of a jean pocket. So they ensure that the quality of the materials they use can last 100,000 times of putting the device in and out of your pocket. The amount of times you press on the screen, they've got machines that test that. In the beginning we had some challenges when it came to the charging blocks, and that was even before we pushed for the desktop cradles and chargers, as that's a weak point on the devices.
You don't actually realize, because in a consumer environment, you use the phone throughout the day, and at night you put it on the charge, and that's it, right? And nowadays you get wireless chargers and those type of things. But in a working environment, it needs to be able to charge fast, and it needs to be able to last long. And the actual cradle or the charging mechanism has to be of some sort that it actually can be robust to last longer. I remember almost 15 years ago when we started with those BB3Gs, we had a lot of connecting problems in the charging blocks that got damaged. Yes. Hence the reason that we sat with the manufacturers and kind of built hardware for Africa, right, with these guys 15 years ago, because you didn't get that. You didn't get the external charging points. One of the metrics that I think, let's call it the rugged world, uses to govern at least a little bit of a quality control outside of the internal portion of the phone, is obviously the IP rating. Yes, we have ICASA as well. Tell us a little bit more about the certification that goes into these devices before we actually send it out to the market.
No, definitely. And I think if we start with the IP rating, most, if not all, of our devices is IP68 rated. The IP stands for ingress protection, and that's a industry standard. There's a specific standard that devices needs to adhere to be able to qualify for that and be certified for it, and it needs to go through a very rigid testing procedure. So if you take a look at the first portion, the 6 is the dust protection, and 6 is the highest dust allocation you can get. So it means the device is completely sealed and there's no place for any dust particles to basically get into the device. And then if we take a look at the last portion, which is the 8, which then covers your water resistance, and 8 is the highest water qualification you can get for submersion in water, which goes up to 1.5 meters for a period of over 30 minutes. But that's where Rugged does things a bit different. Where if it says 1.5 meter for 30 minutes, they would rather look at doing 2 meters for an hour, for argument's sake, as part of the quality control. If it means the shock resistance and the drop testing, the criteria is 1.5, but they would rather test it at 1.8 drop, for argument's sake. And the criteria might be 10,000 drops. They would rather do 15,000 drops. And also, if you go and take a look at the different patterns that Rugged has already gotten in their design work, it's amazing to be partnered with such a company.
But I've seen one of the brands a couple of years ago. I've put a message out there saying that they are IP69, but you don't actually officially get IP69 rating, right?
No, you do.
Okay.
So
how does that work?
Yeah. So the IP69, the 9 is for environments where a device or a machine or something is resistance against high pressure water cleaning and steam resistant, or block or closed door for steam. So that's where the 9 comes in. So that's a lot more in your industrial space or your mining solutions where if you need to clean a specific machine, it needs to be able to withstand a jet cleaner.
So if someone's washing his car with a high pressure spray, and a guard walks past them, busy talking on the phone, and the guy sprays his phone. That's where the IP69 is important.
Yes, something like that.
Well, lucky in the workforce environment, I don't think there's many applications that you're going to find it. And obviously, every single very specific feature that you put into the hardware costs money.
Yes.
So if you want accuracy on location, it connects to different satellites. It could connect to only one. Obviously, the accuracy is not going to be as good. Or it could connect to 3 or 4. And, the more you have and accommodate, the more expensive the device is going to be. If there's hot swappable batteries, or if there's potential connection points like the curly cord two-way communication accessories that the guys add to these things, and the curly cords that comes into here, all those type of things that we accommodate in most of the devices does cost money. So it does make it more expensive. So you can't buy good quality hardware in the sense of devices cheaply. How do they say? Cheap isn't good and good isn't cheap. And as an Instacom brand, we position ourselves as a superior product. It means that we understand intricate portions of our solution, including the software and the connectivity, but in this specific case, obviously the hardware, which is crucial in having a working solution. We'll speak about IoT as a solution acronym that the guys has been using in one of the episodes, and we'll give the guys a little bit more understanding of how that fits into each other. Is there some examples that you could give us where the Instacom devices has made a difference?
No, definitely. And I want to say we almost see it daily with our customers, especially in the security industry, where as we all know, in South Africa, the crime is a problem, and in most cases, the security officers is on the forefront of it. So we've had multiple instances where security guards chases criminals, and during this chase, they might drop their device somewhere on the pavement or on some rocks or something, and they just pick it up and they continue with their day as if nothing happened. We've had a few, and it's actually more than I would like to mention, but we've had a few armed robberies of some of our customers where the devices were stolen, and then during the getaway, the criminals will find out, but they can't switch off the device due to our MDM solution, and they would just throw the device outside or out of the window onto the highway. And we've had multiple instances where a customer would then phone us and say, listen, my phone has been stolen, can you please help us? And then we use our track solution to then pinpoint where that device is. The customers would get there, they pick it up from next to the highway, and they just continue with their work again.
I remember early stages, I think in the first 2 or 3 years, so there should be around about 20 2015 somewhere. We one Friday night we were there at Quibus's place at Pebble Rock, and we had a call at 11 o'clock. And one of the security companies, armed reaction individuals, two guys, were at a garage to buy a cool drink around about 11, and someone walked up and shot them and jumped into the bucket that they were driving with. Luckily, our devices was in there, and at that stage, they didn't realize they're being tracked. That gave us the opportunity to work with them, activating the locate functionality with Instacom to track those devices. I can't remember if they actually recovered the actual individuals, they caught them, or they just recovered the devices. I remember they did recover something from that incident. It's a long time ago, but there's been quite a few of these type of incidents over the past 15 years.
Yes.
Very interesting. So it's nice to be part of such a solution, and obviously in this case hardware, which is extremely important. South Africa is a tough environment. I actually saw yesterday or day before there was a live news feed somewhere, and while the guy was standing there, there's two guys that approached him and robbed him. And at the bottom of the screen it just says welcome to South Africa. I'm just like, oh wow. So we're working in harsh environments, and outside of the criminal activities that goes on, we do have a lot of environments where dust and water does actually impact the quality and the user case, with these devices. How do we ensure our hardware keeps performing under these conditions?
No, perfect. And I think if we look back at some of the points I mentioned before, a lot of that comes down to that initial R&D, and the fact that we can work hand in hand with our partners. It's all about choosing the right partner first off, but also then getting the right devices out there. And we conduct our own internal testing as well. Once we get samples, we will then start a rigorous testing as well, ensuring that whatever we put out in the field works in South Africa. And that's where the ICASA certification comes in, where there's a certain set of rules that every device that connects either via Wi-Fi, SIM card, or any type of data connection needs to adhere to. And that specifications is set out by ICASA, and that gives you a overview of the type of spectrum you need to connect to the type of Wi-Fi chips that you may use, etc., etc. So we always ensure that before we put anything in the market, it goes through that certification. We get the ICASA approval to ensure that whatever we put out there and connects to the critical infrastructure that is our mobile networks, can connect to each and every spectrum and connection, and that is there. But we don't stop there. We also do mobile network approval as well, where we send our devices to certain mobile networks like your Vodacoms, Telcoms, etc., where they would then put that device through rigorous testing as well to ensure that the chipset in there does connect to the different bands that they have on their network, and that provides an additional support side of things that most of the other rugged devices in the field doesn't have, because once that device has gone through testing and approval inside of the network knows what that device is. So if you're in an area where you're struggling with signal and so forth, one of the things that they always ask you first is what device and model are you using? And if you give them some brand that is not part of their environment or hasn't gone through that testing, they would just say, sorry, but we can't help you. You're using an unapproved device on our network.
And in a working environment, you really can't have that. I remember a couple of times that we've obviously worked with Vodacom and Telcom and the likes. They take these testing into a very secure environment. It doesn't allow any signals going in and out, so that they can control the quality of connectivity. And as you mentioned, if you get a cheap and nasty, which doesn't go through the network testing, although it's got ICASA and it's IP68, the inside of it is so important. And we've seen some of the competitors to the likes of Ragia, gives us devices to test, and we take it to the Vodacom or Telcoms of the world, and they disapprove, or they give us a report saying that it misses this chipset, that chipset, this functionality, and it gives us opportunity to speak to the manufacturers to either resolve it or we can't do business with them. All Instacom devices goes through the network testing, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So it's not just something that you can do. You got to be positioned in a solution driven relationship with the networks, and it's also very expensive.
Yes.
And because of that, a lot of our competitors don't do it. So they bring it in, they've got ICASA and they've got an IP rating, but inside of the device, it's a problem. And typically what it does, if you don't connect to a 3G because it doesn't have the chipset to accommodate it, it means that if you're in that area, it literally would not work. And when you phone Vodacom and say, listen, my device isn't connecting, and you tell them I've got this and that device which hasn't gone through their testing, that stops the conversation because it's not approved to connect on the network. And obviously in South Africa we work on the local MNO's network, so if it doesn't connect to that, you can't physically use it. So it's all about stability, reliability, quality of service delivery, and on a B2B, a business-to-business relationship with obviously customers, you can't have point of failure.
No, definitely. And another thing that I want to mention is if you go and take a look at some of the other rugged hardware in the market, is that they get their chipsets and supply from OEMs that does batch manufacturing of certain chipsets or RAM modules or whatever, and they only do a limited run on it. So you get to a point where, you buy the device, you use it for a year, you want to get another one, and the supplier would say, sorry, but we don't have it anymore. It's end of life. You need to buy a new device or a new model. Where with our Ragia range, because just the way that they do things, we are in the fortunate position where from the date of a device is launched, we have a 5-year lifespan on supply for that specific model, and up to 2 years after that of support on components for repairing. So it's those little things and that attention to detail that makes the world of difference in the industry.
Absolutely. Maybe just a little bit of a side note. We obviously have a in-house repair center. The turnaround time we've heard in one of the other episodes we will hear from Johnny when it comes to repairs, how important that is. Maybe just as a last question, and maybe a little bit of a tricky one. How do we innovate and stay ahead of the game? Are we bringing in new exciting products into the market? Is it something that we don't want to expose just yet? Where are we with staying innovative?
No, definitely, and that's a big thing for specifically me, is to ensure that we innovate in our industry. And it's always difficult to talk about possible new hardware that comes in, as we might find a new model or a new supplier or something new that we feel might disrupt the market, and then we bring in samples and we start testing it, and then we get to a point where we say, it's nice, but it doesn't do what it's supposed to, or the quality is not good enough. So it's very difficult for me to say, listen, we're bringing in this device in the next 3 or 4 months. What I can say is that there is new Ragia models coming, and I'm very confident in mentioning we're bringing new Ragia models in, just based on our relationship and the quality that we've had from them. If you take a look at the industry standard when you start doing business with these type of manufacturing manufacturers, is that as part of your order they give you a 2% swap stock, and that is because the industry allows for a 2% failure rate, and with some of our suppliers that we've had in the past, that can go up to 10-15% of failure rate when we receive those devices, and it goes through the initial quality control internal. With Ragia, over the past 5 to 7 years, just with the changes that they've implemented inside of their own environment, that has dropped to almost a 0.2% failure rate on devices we receive.
And that's a metric which not a lot of people understand or even know exists. With a 10% failure rate on your devices, you've got new problems. Very interesting. I think we've learned a lot. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it, and all the best on your travels back home. Keep on doing what you're doing. Maybe just a last question. How many devices do you think you've tested in the past 15 years?
Hundreds. hundreds and hundreds. No, I mean, we've got a stable range now of about 12 models that we supply into the market. But we've tested hundreds of different models and manufacturers and
a lot of them is rebrands.
Yes. So a lot of the different type of hardware out there, all of them comes from the same factory, but it might be branded differently. But if you take it into the market, it looks exactly the same as the competitor device out there. So it's an interesting environment.
Well, thank you for all your efforts. You are part of the stability that we supply to our customers and ensuring that they're as efficient as they can be, regardless of the environment. Please enjoy. I hope you enjoyed this session, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you.